I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. You know how every once in a while you see something innocuous and it just pisses you off? That happened to me this week. The Army just announced the CCFC, the Combat Cloth Face Covering. What is it, you might ask? It's a mask. It's just a mask like the ones we've been wearing for 10 months. It's exactly like that, but it took 10 months for the Army to develop it. Now, why did this piss me off? It's not that it took them 10 months to come out with an official mask. I mean, is that really a priority? Probably not, right? The problem is that they were super proud about it because it only took 10 months when typically it would take them 18 to 24 months to get an item into circulation. Now, mind you, it's not actually out yet. It's coming out in Q2 of next year. Q2 of next year will finally have a face covering that the Army is approving for use for all soldiers. Q2 of next year, probably most people will have the vaccine. Probably COVID is not going to be nearly the issue it'll be this year. And why? Because during the same amount of time that the Army was trying to figure out how to make the same mask we're all wearing, but with some camo on it, scientists around the world literally created a cure for a pandemic. Sometimes when you ask yourself, why have we been at war for 20 years with no end in sight? Nothing seems to be improving. Maybe think about an organization that is moving so slowly that they can't come up with the same mask that we've all been using for 10 months. Under a year.
As of this morning, Congress is still in negotiations as to whether or not a second COVID relief bill will be passed. I think we can all agree, however, that nobody has any faith in these people whatsoever. The deadline for this bill was July. Already there is talk about the bill not passing and a government shutdown occurring. Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was quoted as saying that nobody is going anywhere and that the people are staying until the COVID relief bill is passed. The current bill on the table consists of a one-time payment of $600 for most Americans, extended $300 a week unemployment checks, and allegedly some help for small businesses, whatever that means. We await this generous relief from our glorious overlords. Don't spend that $600 all in one place.
A report published this Friday by the New York City Department of Investigation has stated that New York City police used excessive force when dealing with protesters and rioters this summer. Their conclusion was that it was due to undertraining. Their solution was to fund and support realistic-based training iterations, unarmed combat, and psychology for all officers on a weekly basis. Just kidding. Instead, their solution was to create a single oversight committee for the entire city. We believe strongly that that added layer of bureaucracy is going to make a huge difference to the people on the ground.
A San Diego Superior Court judge ruled this week that the state would no longer be allowed to enforce shutdowns of restaurants and live entertainment venues. After an initial ruling on 2 strip clubs that were shut down that was overturned, the order was brought again before the judge to clarify, as no restaurants were brought in as plaintiffs. Judge Joel Woolfield stated that the state had not provided any evidence as to restaurants following safety protocols being to blame for the spread of the coronavirus, and therefore shutting them down was unenforceable. The state has appealed and has asked for a stay on the ruling so, they can continue to tell small businesses to shut down, starve, and kill their businesses. The city of Carlsbad, however, is rolling with this ruling and has told the state to sit the down. Let's just hope the trend continues.
War looks a little different in 2020. This past week, the United States called out China for no showing at a virtual conference. China retorted, it's really irresponsible for the United States to call us out for no showing at a virtual conference. Tensions have risen, but this is essentially the equivalent of, I know you are, but what am I?
Hunter Biden disclosed that his taxes are being reviewed by a federal prosecutor in Delaware. Allegedly, these investigations have been ongoing for roughly 2 years. Joe Biden stated that he thinks the investigation is actually foul play directed at besmirching the name of Joe Biden. Yeah, man, totally a smear on his stellar record as a living saint. We've all literally seen the pictures and videos of that dude banging hookers and smoking the rock. Why not just say what we all know you're thinking? God, I hope they don't find more stuff that my crazy ass son has been doing. But let's be honest, nobody cares, nothing will happen.
Russian hackers infiltrated the U.S. Department of Energy this week, giving them access to the supply chain for nuclear power. According to reports, the infiltration was merely to mine data and information and not to do anything nefarious. So I guess that's good news. It does, however, put a massive dent in our national security, and apparently it is still going to take weeks before we are sure that the hackers are out of the system. Thus far, all fingers are pointing to the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. While the most sensitive servers were not accessed, a number of others with sensitive information were. I'm not nerdy enough to tell you what all this means, but one thing is certain: cybersecurity is so hot right now.
This week, a dog named Zorik in a small town in Estonia was immortalized in a bronze statue. With a bronze statue. He's not actually in the bronze statue. I think that's illegal. But it is Estonia. Zorik has been a resident in the small town in Estonia since he was a puppy and has been a vagabond his entire life, spanning up to 12 years. Even though he was homeless, he was never truly alone. At one point, he had another doggy companion that would travel along with him, going from back alley to back alley, giving whatever scraps the restaurant owners would throw them. This ended tragically, and his heart was broken when his little doggy pal was hit by a car and killed. Emotionally crushed and seeking an outlet for his dark woes, he joined a gang of cats as their hired muscle. But eventually he came back around to being the good doggy that he was. He was brought back to the good side by the love of the townsfolk. Later he was moved to the countryside, where he asked himself, how the hell did I get here?
Looks like it's going to be a white Christmas after all, just not the family-friendly kind. This week, 649 kilos, or about 1,500 pounds, of Colombian Bam Bam were found in an abandoned ship off the Marshall Islands. These aren't exactly the packages we thought Santa was going to be dropping off, but hey, not mad. According to local authorities, this is the largest shipment of cocaine to ever wash up on their shores, but surprisingly, not the first. Police say that when smugglers are about to get caught or they just hit really bad weather, they say fuck it and jump overboard. Which is crazy because this haul is worth $50 million on the black market. But I guess it's hard to choose between getting caught and ending up in some sketchy foreign prison that you'll never escape, or going back to your cartel boss and saying, hey man, I'm sorry, I kind of dropped all your yay in the ocean. The 18-foot fiberglass ship was apparently afloat for over 2 years before finally washing ashore. That would have made Castaway a way more interesting movie.
French President Emmanuel Macron has come down with a coronavirus. The 42-year-old reported having symptoms of the virus and is now self-quarantined for the next 7 days. His wife Bridget, who is 62, has also decided to self-quarantine as well. Just sounds like a little vacation to me. In unrelated news, I am also self-quarantining for the month, even though I have no symptoms whatsoever. I will be in the mountains of Colorado or the beaches of Bahamas. Following his positive test, other European leaders have also decided to self-quarantine. Last week, Macron, along with almost every EU leader, attended a 2-day European Council Heads of State Summit. So to be safe, the leaders and all the attendees of the summit have agreed that small businesses and restaurants need to be shut down.
A Kenyan man who was arrested in the Philippines last year has been accused of trying to hijack a plane and fly it into a large building in the United States. I'm not sure what these terrorists have against American-made skyscrapers, but goddamn do they hate them. Cholo Abdi Abdullah, who we will just call Cholo because it's shorter and hilarious, went to flight school, then researched how to breach a cockpit, and then researched what's the tallest skyscraper in the United States. So basically looking for as many red flags as possible in one tiny little confined space. According to the FBI, Cholo was being directed by a senior member of the Al-Shabaab Somali terror group. The name of the operation was Jerusalem Will Never Be Judaized, which is a pretty shitty operation name. I mean, I know you're a shitty terrorist organization in the middle of a shitty country, but could you get maybe one marketing person? The person directing Cholo was also responsible for an attack on a luxury hotel in Nairobi. This plan was apparently hatched as a response to President Trump moving our Israeli embassy to the city of Jerusalem. On Tuesday, Cholo transferred from a prison in the Philippines where he was facing weapons charges to a prison in the United States where he is facing so many terrorism charges they wouldn't fit on a CVS receipt. Naturally, he pleaded not guilty.
In scientific discovery news, researchers and scientists from the Western Australian Museum have discovered what could be the largest sea creature in the world. The creature, called a siphonophore, isn't nearly as badass as the name or the size of the creature would suggest. When I saw the headline of the article, I reached right in my bag and I pulled out that 2020 Apocalypse bingo card. I was like, here we go, Pacific Rim giant monster. Yeah, the siphonophore is nowhere near that cool, but it is real. The creature measured up to 150 feet long, which is actually longer than the previous record holder, the lion's mane jellyfish, which can have tentacles up to 120 feet long. In comparison, the blue whale is only 100 feet long. And just when you thought siphonophore was hard to pronounce, the scientific researchers have used a whole bunch of words to describe this creature that I can't even begin to pronounce. So let me paint a picture for you. It's like if Silly String and a neon bar sign from the 90s had a baby, or some nuclear-powered fried dough that's rolled out into a really long roll, or probably the stuff your girlfriend or wife leaves at the bottom of the shower. I think I painted that picture pretty well. Now you might think that this siphonophore doesn't belong in the same category as, say, the lion's mane jellyfish, but what researchers have been doing while finding this siphonophore has been pretty damn cool. In researching it, they have identified 30 new bioluminescent life forms that were previously unknown. So, science, still awesome.
Ever developed an irrational and uncontrollable fear of vultures and needed to find an outlet to deal with these feelings? A small town in North Carolina has your back. They have decided to build a giant cannon to deal with their vulture problem. The cannon is being built in Bunn, North Carolina, which is only like a 30-minute drive from here, so field trip is forthcoming. Maybe we'll even get to shoot a vulture.
It's not that kind of cannon.
Well, this is disappointing news. Apparently, it's just a powerful microphone. The cannon produces 130 decibels of sound, similar to the sound of a shotgun going off, and is going to be mounted on the top of a high school gymnasium. Call me crazy, but I just don't think that blasting a shotgun sound over a high school is a recipe for good things. Vultures are federally protected birds, so you can't just shoot them. But there's no law that says you can't blow out their eardrums as they fly by. Personally, I'm glad that the town has found a way to deal with these birds, but I think calling it a cannon is a bit foul.
A fire that broke out on a farm in Florida this week killed almost 250,000 chickens. Around 1 a.m. on Thursday, the Pasco County Fire Department reported that 3 barns full of chickens were on fire. Each of these barns contained over 80,000 chickens. That's a lot of hot cocks. Luckily for the distributing company Cal-Maine, the 250,000 chickens is only a small dent in their 50 million chicken operation. This will, however, go down as the most delicious tragedy in the town's history.
Marius Els, a farmer in South Africa, was mauled to death this week by a hippo. The hippo is the most dangerous animal on the planet, so a man getting mauled by a hippo isn't unto itself newsworthy. However, what makes this newsworthy is that Els was an idiot. Els adopted the hippo 6 years ago and had it roaming essentially in his backyard. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of people do it. However, what was the problem is that Els thought he could raise this thing like a dog. So he petted it, he fed it, he rode it in the river, and there was a huge news story about him last year that he felt the hippo was like a son to him and that they were misunderstood and that people shouldn't be afraid of them. Even though, of course, they're the animal that kills more people than any other animal. Well, apparently the 1-ton animal got tiffed at him at some point, bit him a bunch of times, and then kind of held him underwater for like hours. They actually said they didn't know how long his body had been in the river when they found him because the hippo was just kind of playing with him. So, the moral of the story is, don't have a pet hippo.
On Saturday, the Las Vegas PD arrested a man for dancing on the wing of an Airbus full of passengers while it was trying to take off. The Alaskan airline had planned to take off to Portland when suddenly, out of nowhere, a man appeared on the wing. This isn't a Twilight Zone joke, and I have no idea how he got up there, but the dude's got one hell of a vertical. Vegas meth be no joke, y'all. While on the wing, the man danced, rolled around, took his shoes off, and threw them at the officers. He then rolled up his pant legs and tried to scale the tip of the wing, which was very, very unsuccessful. He ended up slipping and falling right into the custody of the police, and also face first into the concrete below. Florida man got some competition.
And finally, in Florida Man news, in news that proves that Vegas man can't even clean Florida man's crack pipe. Florida is a true American figurehead, not some guy climbing on the wing of an airplane. Get over yourself, Vegas man. After being bitten by a shark, a Florida man took the advice of every 1980s to 1990s PE teacher and decided to try to walk it off. The police were called by a woman who said she was with a man that had been bitten on the hand and arm, was pale, and was bleeding profusely. Apparently, no one at the beach said, "Hey man, why don't you just sit down while I call 911? It looks like you've been through some shit." I'm torn between thinking people were just trying to socially distance properly, or just not giving a shit that a man just got mauled by a shark. Given that it's Florida, I'm probably leaning towards the latter. Over the phone, emergency services were able to instruct the woman about how to stop the bleeding and how to try to keep Florida man awake until they arrived. You see that, Vegas man? Florida man's got some gall, some real chutzpah. The Florida Museum of Natural History has warned beachgoers to be cautious in the water because even though it's rare to be attacked by a shark, it's even more rare to blow a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots. And with that, I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and get your last-minute Christmas shopping in right now, including at rangerup.com, where you can get 25% off when you use the code BNN. Have a great weekend, guys. Be safe.
And don't forget to check out our OnlyFans at onlyfans.com/NickandMatt.